Hello fellow goblins and trolls, I'm Ashley from Arkham Armory, and today I'm going to be making Sting. It's glowing blue. You must be closer than I thought. All of the materials I used to make Sting are available from Tig Supplies. From the acrylic rods I used as the core, the EVA foam, and even the paints that I used at the end. I'll put the link to their website in the description below. I've always been a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, from the books, the films, and even the Games Workshop Lord of the Rings miniature series. One of the first things I painted when I got into minis was Balin's tomb from Fellowship of the Ring.
Get back! Think what's Uganda!
They have a cave troll.
The very first thing I did was design the Hobbit-sized sword in light burn so that I could cut all the parts out on my laser. I'm going to be using 3 layers of 5mm EVA foam. In the centre layer I've cut the groove out for the acrylic rod. That'll be the core of the sword. I've separated it into handle, crossguard and blade, but I later cut the pommel off the handle just to make it easier to sand. I'd also designed the elven writing that goes on the crossguard, but because of how small it needed to cut and how thick the foam was, it actually burnt all the way through, so I was left with the relief of the bit that I wanted rather than the parts that I wanted. I'm going to be using a 6mm acrylic rod as the core of Sting. I'm using 6mm for Sting because it's quite a small sword, but I think if you were going for anything bigger you'd want a 10mm rod. I'm just measuring it out using the measurements on my cutting mat. The rod needed to be 460mm. I'm using a white Posca pen just to mark that out. And then this can be easily cut with a hacksaw. Once it's cut out, the end is a little bit sharp, and obviously we don't want that to poke through the foam, so I'm using some cheap nail files from the local makeup shop and just filing that down so it's nice and smooth and rounding over the edge. And I make sure to do this on both sides. Once the ends are nice and smooth, I then start roughing up the entire rod. I use a little bit of sandpaper just to make it easier and go up and down just so that the contact cement will bond better to it. So we've got the acrylic rod as well as the top, middle and bottom. I keep my contact cement in a squirty bottle used for sauce and just use scraps of foam to help spread it. Before we start gluing it together, I just want to make sure that all the parts fit right and that I've cut the rod to the right length. Luckily, it was spot on. I'm going to be using a white tailor's pencil just to mark where the edge of the blade comes, just so I know where to finish putting contact cement so I don't put it the entire length of the shaft.
Phrasing?
We'll be applying contact cement to both of those inside edges. Apply it to one side and then the other. Make sure that you don't let them touch, otherwise they will glue together, so spread them nice and wide.
Phrasing?
Once the EVA foam is completely covered in contact cement, you then move on to the acrylic rod, and it's important that you don't forget the tip.
Hey! Phrasing!
With contact cement, you want to coat both pieces and then leave it about 5 minutes until it goes tacky before you glue them together. As you can see, I'm wearing my Andy's Man's Club wristband. Don't forget, it's okay to talk.
5 minutes later.
Once the glue is set enough, I stuck the rod to the one side and then the other and then squoze it all together. I just pinch around the rod just to make sure that it's all secure. This is an important step if you're planning on using the sword for LARP. We're going to be gluing a small piece of leather at the tip just to stop the rod poking through the foam if you stab anyone with it. I asked my supervisor to come and check my work. She said I was doing a great job and I could carry on. Once the contact cements had time to go off, stick the piece of leather over the tip and do that on both sides. Now let's sandwich that centerpiece. We'll use contact cement. Make sure that you get it all the way to the edges on both pieces. Even if you have to go back in and put a little bit more on, just make sure that it is completely covered in contact cement, because anywhere that the contact cement isn't touching contact cement, it won't be glued and it'll leave a big void when you come to sand it later. So as you can see there, I'm just adding a little bit extra contact cement because it hadn't quite gone all the way to the edges. Now you only get one chance to put these together, because as soon as they touch, they are stuck. So you want to make sure that you're lining it up really well. And then you want to flip it over and do the same on the other side, unless you can use the power of editing. I'm going to mark a line down the center just so that I know where is the highest point when I come to sand it in a minute. And of course you're going to want to do this on both sides. I also marked the edge of the blade so that I knew where I was going to sand to. It was my birthday last week and I thought to myself, well, you're only 76 once, so I bought myself a belt sander, which has made sanding down the blade so much easier. If you haven't got a belt sander, you can use a Dremel or use a knife and then a sanding block. I just take a little bit off each time, keep checking, making sure that I'm not going past the lines until I've got a nice bevel on all four edges. With all the parts sanded, it was time to test fit it together. The crossguard and the pommel were nice and easy. The handle was a little bit snug, but that's not going to be a problem. Before I glue these together, there's a couple of things I want to do first. The silver vine inlay that's on the handle normally is completely smooth and flush, but I didn't want mine just to be painted on. So what I'm doing here is just marking out where the vines are going to go on the handle, and then I'm going to use this 5mm half dowel and wrap it around the handle and hopefully make some nice leaves out of it too. So I'm using super glue for this, as contact cement would be quite tricky. I'm going to wrap it around once from the front and then do the same again on the back. So just apply a little bit of super glue and then some activator once I've pressed it to where I want, and just work it all the way down the length of the handle. Once I've wrapped it once, I trim off the excess with my Stanley knife there, and then flip the handle over and do it again in between. So it's actually two vines, one from the front and one from the back. When you glue in a thin piece like this, what you want to do is a small section at a time. Make sure that it's dry before you move on to the next bit. The activator definitely helps with the speed up time. It's almost instant, and it's ideal for small details like this, anything fiddly. Now onto the 12 leaves. I cut two small sections with a bevel, curve them a little bit, and then glue the tips together first, and once that's dried I flip it over and glue the other end. This makes a lovely little leaf that matches the vines. I just need to make 11 more of them. I glue the leaves on the same way as I did with the vines, just a small dab of super glue on each leaf. For the raised design on the crossguard, I'm using some 1mm craft foam, just tracing around the crossguard and then drawing on the design. Once I've marked out all the pieces that I want, I use a sharp pair of scissors to cut these out because it's quite thin foam, it's nice and easy. To glue all these parts, again, I'm using contact cement, just spreading that out everywhere that it will be touching, making sure you get all the edges. And once the contact cement is ready, I press these parts all together. Now I did oversize these slightly, so once they're pressed together, I take my sharp scalpel and just trim it, and then I follow that up by using a nail sanding block, which is a flexible block, which is ideal for the curved pieces because you can get around all those edges nicely. I then repeat the process. I mark up where the very top pieces are going and use contact cement again to glue those on. And now it's time to glue it all together. So one last test fit just to make sure that everything fits again. And there it is, fully built. Let's get this painted. I'm going to be using 2 brushes, a small one to get in all the hard to reach areas and a large one for the blade. Some water and then Flexi Paint. This is the best paint to use for foam. I'm going to be covering the whole thing with black first and then following it up with silver. The great thing with using Flexi Paint is that you don't have to prime the foam first. You don't need to coat it in PVA glue or Mod Podge or anything like that. You can just go straight in with the Flexi Paint. I'm doing 1 solid coat of black to begin with, making sure I get in every nook and cranny. I paint one side, let it dry, and then flip it over and paint the other side. And once the black is completely dry, it's then onto the silver. Make sure that you shake the bottle well. Tyke Supply's Flexi Paint is the best paint for foam, full stop. There is a great range of colours and they come in different size bottles. Obviously I've got quite large bottles because I get through quite a lot of the black and the silver. The metallics are amazing. You do need to put 2 thin coats on to get a nice smooth finish, but the result is amazing. I like to pour my paint out into a Tupperware, something that I can seal so that I don't waste paint. Just look at this amazing silver. For the elven design on the blade, cut a paper template and I'm going to use a silver biro to trace that out on both sides. And then I'll freehand the elvish. To paint the handle, I'm using a Games Workshop brown. I think it's Rhinox hide. Block in all the areas first. Again, it's going to need a few coats to cover the silver, otherwise it'll look quite streaky. Just block in all those areas, do one side, let it dry, and then move on to the other side. Cover that 2 or 3 times. That's the handle finished. Once you've got Sting all painted, it's time for a top coat. Now the best top coat for Flexi Paint is the no tack top coat for Flexi Paint. It comes in matte or gloss. It's a lot thinner than the Flexi Paint. It's got the consistency of water, dries really quickly, and I just put 2 coats of this over the whole thing. 2 coats of matte and then 1 coat of gloss over the blade. If you want to build Sting for yourself, get on over to Tyke Supplies where they'll have everything you need. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.